You might have.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about math, and we called it the math emergency because this is probably the thing that most homeschooling parents feel like they need to get a hold of like right away, because you can't kind of not do math for half a year and not have a consequence later, right? So we want to help people figure this out as soon as possible. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is go through the major curriculums that are designed for homeschoolers that we know of and know people using. And as you kind of get into homeschooling, like you'll hear the same ones over and over again. So we're going to present them to you and kind of give you like a short overview of how they work or what they might be like to use. And then please like take, and we're going to show you what they look like, and then, take notes and investigate further, because most of these curriculums have at least a couple of sample lessons online, and might, like BeckiJo said, most of them have like a test that will tell you what level your child is on in their program, because they're not all exactly lined up the same. So and we'll get started. Okay, so Saxon, which BeckiJo was already talking about, is one of the most common ones. A lot of whole curriculums use this as their math. So I believe Sunlight uses this, Classical Conversations uses Saxon. I think even Veritas uses Saxon. So a homeschool mentor of mine called this the war horse. So this is going to be the most like a traditional math program, in my opinion, like that I would have used in elementary school or maybe even middle school. My public school was pretty far off track by the time we got to high school, but this would be like the closest thing to, say, Addison Wesley, for example. And Saxon is the person that wrote the curriculum, but he did not write the K-3. So the K-3 is a different style, I guess, not style, but like a different type of curriculum, and is meant to be a complement to the main textbooks that were written like 4 through high school. And this is what the elementary school curriculum looks like. I apologize for the pixelated picture. So it is a scripted lesson. So it will say this, and then, ask your child this, ask your child this. So you can just kind of open it and use it. You do need some manipulatives, which are shown here. I think if you buy the whole thing with manipulatives, it's probably $100 and something, like in the low hundreds. But this is so common that it's readily available online. However, it is designed to be used with workbooks. So like these two are actually workbooks. It comes with a full set of flashcards for whatever set, grade level you're using. And there's like a morning meeting part, and then there's the lesson, and then there's the practice pages, which are the workbook. I used this twice with 2 children. Typically in most math curriculums, people will tell you to skip the kindergarten curriculum and just start using the first grade at a slow pace in kindergarten. And I agree with that. And that's what I've done with my children. Kindergarten for these curriculums is typically so simple that you wouldn't want to spend your time actually teaching it, unless you were looking for something to do, which, some parents of young children are looking for, but I don't recommend it. Do something else with your time. I stopped using it because I just couldn't bear to teach it a third time. It's not that it's a bad curriculum and it will totally do its job, but I didn't want to do it a third time with my third child, because it's just not super interesting. And it's pretty intensive to teach. Like it takes a lot of time. And then at the same time, my oldest son was in pre-algebra in Saxon. And Saxon, BeckiJo said when we were going through this, she's like, yeah, it's intensive to teach, which is, I guess, true. Unless your kid is really good at learning from a math textbook, you are going to need to either supplement that, or there's a thing called a dive CD. So there are a couple of people who have made video accompaniment lessons to Saxon, but Dive is the most famous one, or the most commonly used one. And he's like an engineer or something who's good at teaching math. So for, I want to say about $75, it's probably no longer on DVD like it was when I used it. You can probably just get it on the internet and subscribe to some kind of video program. But so you can get teaching supplements where somebody will go through and teach it as if your kid was in a math classroom. Saxon spirals. So it goes from it'll like teach a concept, teach another concept, teach another concept, and then come back and teach those concepts again, but like in a more complex way. So this is opposed to like a mastery approach where you do all of one type of math and you finish it and then you get to the next type of math. So like, let's say you were in like 5th or 6th grade and you're studying decimals, fractions, and ratios. So in a mastery approach program like Singapore math, you would do fractions until you were done fractions. And then you would do decimals until you were done decimals. And then you would do ratios until you were finished with ratios. However, Saxon is going to teach a little bit about fractions, a little bit about decimals, a little bit about ratios, and then it's going to cycle back and teach fractions again, decimals again, ratios again. So depending on like what you feel most comfortable with or what you think is right for your kid. They also do a great job of cross-referencing with their practice problems. So the way it's designed is there'll be a lesson and then there'll be the lesson problems that are specific to what they just learned. And then there'll be a whole bunch of practice problems, which most kids probably shouldn't be forced to do them all, or you'll be doing math all day. Just have them do the evens or the odds or circle a couple or whatever. But it will reference which lesson to go back to if your child has trouble with that so that you can kind of reteach that concept. And the reason I stopped using Saxon is my oldest son was in pre-algebra and he was having trouble understanding like, well, why do we do this procedure? And I said, okay, we're going to like look at this and really, get back to as far as when you have to go in order to understand the concept. And I did that using the cross-referencing and looking through the book and using some basic intelligence. And I realized that book did not teach that concept. They only taught the procedure. And so I said, okay, like at that point, I had another kid that would have started with Saxon. And I just said, we're going to do something else. But it's perfectly acceptable. And your kid will learn math if they do Saxon. And, you can find it used pretty easily. Is there anything I should be adding to that, BeckiJo? That was a long explanation.
Nothing that I can think of.
Okay. So the next one that's commonly used is Math-U-See. And this has a video component built into it. And it also has a lot of manipulatives, which can be like a good balance for a parent. I have never used this. I have never even looked through the book, but I know a lot of people who have used it and been happy with it. So it's an option. Look on their website. I have heard that the way the person who teaches explains this is helpful even for parents to understand math better. So this could be a good option. I don't know a ton about it, but if that sounds appealing to you, go ahead and look into it.
Especially if you have a child who is really good with hands-on learning, it really builds math concepts through that hands-on learning. But again, you can do that at home without buying the expensive manipulatives for this program you need to. But there are so many ways to do that at home as it is.
Right. I think BeckiJo and I are both believers that especially younger children should use manipulatives if possible. Yeah. And that's, labor intensive for the parent is just the reality of the situation, but it can be really like a strong thing to do for your kids as they're young. And older, like my mom was a math teacher for elementary and studied, gifted education and stuff. And she believed in manipulatives through junior high, at least whenever you could get them in. Okay, so Singapore math is kind of like Saxon. It's like a traditional like major program that's also used in regular schools. And they have a homeschool specific curriculum that you can buy and use. And when I explained mastery approach and spiral approach, like I was comparing these two. Singapore was used in Singapore to great success with math students. And so in America, we started using it. And I have friends that I really respect as homeschoolers, and they swear by this math program. So I think it's really good at teaching like math facts and basic concepts in a way that is very engaging and thorough. So, I would recommend this as a good option to look into. Okay, Beast Academy is what I switched to after being frustrated with Saxon. Beast Academy is published by The Art of Problem Solving. And I actually found out about it from Kate Snow, who is an online, well, she's more than this, but she reviews math programs online. And I think she's associated with Peace Hill Press at this point, actually, and makes some of her own math curriculums. But if you're looking for some thorough reviews, she's a good resource. She went to Harvard and was a math major, I think a math education major. So she's very well and taught math for a long time. So I appreciate her opinion because I feel like she's a good resource. So Beast Academy is designed like no other math program that I've encountered. So you have 4 books per year, and that's what I'm showing you here. Each book has a component. So you can see A, B, C, there's like 2 for each. So the one is called a guide, and it's basically a comic book that has these monsters explaining the math concepts. And it's fairly engaging for kids, and my kids like to read them, and I try to read them with them. But that's sort of the teaching component. And then there's a workbook. So the workbook is kind of keyed to the guidebook, and you'll read a section of the comic book, and then that will apply to, let's say, like 10 of the workbook pages. So this is not good at teaching math facts by rote. They will introduce the concepts of multiplication, addition, all of that stuff, but they will not, like, you still need to like have your kids do math fact sheets or how flashcards or whatever it is. I like it because it's like Math Olympiad as a math curriculum. So I feel like it walks all the way around the concepts of the numbers and their relationships and really plays. It's very play oriented in terms of how you think about numbers. However, the publisher says that it's written for the top 5% of math students. My kids are not the top 5% of math students, but I think, and I agree with Kate Snow, who says that it's probably useful for the top 20% of math students. And that's where my kids fall, or at least where I hope my kids fall. And I have found this to be incredibly great. I use it in conjunction with Right Start Math because it doesn't start until 2nd grade. Beast Academy doesn't start until 2nd grade. They cover, it's harder than a regular math program. So what they're doing in 3rd grade is probably more like 4th or 5th grade. They're covering concepts that in a normal math program they won't get till 4th or 5th grade. My kids, are doing some algebra in like the first set of books, but I don't find it overwhelming. As long as I don't have my kids do too many pages a day. There's probably about 5 to 10 problems on each page, and we only do 2 pages a day. And it has a video component, so you can, for $150, you can get a full set of books for the year, and then you can play the games online, or you can answer the problems online. It's like a game format. And they have supplementary games. We don't use any of that, but I do really like the teaching videos. I like the man who teaches it. And so there's a couple of videos for each section, and they're like 2.5 minutes long. So I love this program. And if you are halfway interested, I would say look into it. I know that there are placement tests and samples online.
And Kandra, didn't you tell me that you don't always try to have them do all 4 books in a year?
Yeah, I think it's a lot to do 4 books in a year. So my kids are behind always in terms of what grade level they are. But I've looked at my 7th grader is finishing up book 5 because I didn't start him until later, and he didn't actually test. He started it at the end of 3rd grade, and we started in book 2. So he's behind, not because he's behind, but because, of the schedule that we're on. And I have looked at pre-algebra programs versus like the 5th level of Beast Academy, which is where he is, and they're about the same. So my younger son, I actually started in 2nd grade, and he will be pretty much on track as long as we can get like 3-ish books a year done to go into pre-algebra when he's in 7th grade. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I think it surpasses a typical 5th grade math by far. It's published by the Art of Problem Solving. This is what the next set of books looks like. I don't know if my kids are going to be able to handle going into my original plan is to put them into Art of Problem Solving math classes after they're done Beast Academy, but I don't know if that's going to be too hard for them, because the Art of Problem Solving that's like online classes of what they put gifted kids into when they can't challenge them within a school, for example. So I don't know if my kids are at that level. We might switch to something else after this, but I'm going to try to see if we can manage Art of Problem Solving. because I just love the way they think about math. And I'm not a math person at all. Like I have found joy in math that I did not have as a student, as a homeschooler. Okay, so here's the thing that I use when my kids are like kindergarten to first grade. And like I said, I skip the first books, which I believe are the red ones. So I go straight into blue when they're in kindergarten, and I just spend a lot of time, like, you know, it might take me a year and a half to get through the blue book. So it's a lot of manipulatives. It uses an abacus a lot. They have songs and chants that they use, but it's the manipulatives heavy program that I have found that I enjoy teaching. I don't find it overly repetitive, and I think it's clever the way it teaches relationships of numbers. I had some friends recommend it to me, and so I've used it with my younger two kids until they're old enough for Beast Academy. So this is worth looking into. I know they have sample problems or sample lessons online. I will say it's a little bit expensive. So I bought the books used, and I sort of tried to collect as many of the manipulatives as I could, either from friends or buying them used or just only buying what I needed. It has a math card games book. You see this yellow book there. I have the old version. It doesn't look as good as this one. But there's a set of card games, and I want to say the set of cards is something like $60, and it might be more because it's been a couple of years since I bought it. But if you love the idea of math card games, that's actually a supplement. So you could teach the manipulatives lessons as part of, you know, the regular way to use JumpStart, and then you can also teach math card games. You could, I originally bought the math card games book and set of cards as a supplement to Saxon, because I was like, oh, you know, this isn't very much fun. Like I want to include more fun. So you could do that too. But I like this program. I don't swear by it like I swear by Beast Academy, but I do really like the JumpStart. I'm happy with it.
Wouldn't the math card games be a great class in co-op too?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Like just enrichment math to supplement what kids are doing at home. Yeah, because that's the thing. I mean, and it's not that we all don't want to do enrichment and card games and, you know, all of that stuff. It's just like, it's hard to get to it. So, all right, teaching textbook, BeckiJo, I guess you've already talked about this offline, but do you want to say something quickly about this?
Yes. So teaching textbooks 4.0 now is all online, and you do have the option of ordering the CDs if you have a computer that will play them. You also have the option of ordering the textbook. The textbook is especially helpful in the older grades when you get up to Algebra 1, Algebra 2, so that they can refer back to the definitions and the skills that were taught. Some of the advantages of teaching textbook, it's engaging. It also allows you free time to work with one of your other children. My son really enjoyed it. My daughter really didn't, but she didn't enjoy anything with math. They answer the questions right online. I always had a scratch pad nearby for him to use. It grades it for you and keeps track of the grades, but it also gives the parents that option of going in and changing the grades, which is helpful in that I wanted my son to master the concepts. If he really struggled, we went back in and we watched the video again together. And then he retook he redid the practice problems so that he could really master what he was doing. I really like it. I wish I'd stuck with it for my daughter, but it was not a good fit for her. It is relatively inexpensive. It's anywhere from $35 to about $70, depending on the grade level. It has placement tests for you to give your child. It does not begin until third grade. And then once you buy the program, you have it for a full 12 months.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Actually, a lot of the things I like about Beast Academy, it sounds like this one does too. Okay. So learn math fast. BeckiJo, you know about this one too.
I do know about this one. And this one is actually designed. It was interesting just researching to see how it came to be. This one is actually designed. It's 7 books, and they teach 1st to 12th grade math with a different approach. They use an approach that allows struggling older students to go from simple addition like 2 + 3 to high school geometry in 1 to 2 years. If you are not seeking to do that, you can take longer to complete these. This is how we did algebra and geometry with my daughter. And we went back and reviewed a bit before that because teaching textbooks wasn't a good fit. So you can take your time. It's called Learn Math Fast because it says you don't need 12 years to learn math. And you really don't need all of that time. In many systems across the world, they don't start the academic instruction until about 8 or 9 years old, and they find that students catch up very quickly. So this just goes through the facts more simply. It's very easy to read. You don't even have to sit and teach. As long as they can read through it and do it themselves. My daughter was actually very independent using these, and I brought a couple of these if you want to look through them to see what they are. She did most of her work on paper, and we were very successful with the Learn Math Fast, and it does have the answers in the back.
Wow, so this sounds like a really good option if somebody's pulled their kid out of school and they realize that maybe their child was passing but didn't understand what was happening, and they need to catch up for a couple of years, but in a consolidated way because they don't actually have 12 years to go through year by year in a traditional program.
Yes, exactly. Because like teaching textbooks has, 140 lessons in it, and many of the math programs are designed for 36 weeks. So,
Right.
but if you want to catch your child up to where they need to be, this is the perfect program. You start at book one, no matter what, start at book one and take them through. Because if they know the concepts, they can go through quickly. And it's very inexpensive. So you're not killing yourself by buying all of the books.
That's great. Okay, CTC math is completely online, correct, BeckiJo? You know more about this one than I do.
Why does this keep taking me out? It is completely online. You learn at your own pace. You can stop and rewind the teacher until you get it. There's a teacher actually teaching. I believe it's with an Australian accent, which bothers some people and doesn't bother others. It tends to build confidence. You can use it as a way to catch your child up to where they need to be, kind of as a tutor, or it can be used as a curriculum. I've not used it, and I don't really know anyone who has, but I like the sounds of it. It has the tutorial, that is the video teaching it. It has interactive questions on a worksheet for them to do right online. But then it also has one-page summaries and worksheets that you can print out for them to do offline as well. And it does do marking and reports for you. So it sounds like a fairly complete curriculum to me, and it goes all the way up. It also has some special things to be working on the times tables, which is something that kids always need extra work on. So it could be a very good option for you.
Great. Okay, and the ACE program, okay, I didn't skip one. Okay, so the ACE program stands for Accelerated Christian Education. I've also heard it called PACE. Somehow those two things.
They call them, yes.
Yeah, like interact. So this is a program that's like workbook based, and your child just goes through the workbooks. And I believe there's going to be 12 like per credit, like in terms of a year. So they're pretty thin books, and they're printed on newsprint, and you just get the stack of them, and then your child works through them, and there are self-tests, and then there are actual tests. And this is a great way, like if your child needs to be independent or you just need to get math credits. My personal interaction with this is I work at House of Hope, which is a residential program for teenagers in our local area. And the girls all come in, many of them have learning disabilities, or they've been behind in school, or both, because they've been unsuccessful at home and disruptive in their behavior, and just school has not been a main focus for them. So our goal is to always, catch them up to grade level so they can re-enter their local school, or sometimes they get their diploma. And so we use this program for all of the credits that the girls get, because they can all be working at different grade levels on different subjects, and semi-independently with like just tutorial help from the teaching staff at House of Hope. We have a Hope Academy, so I've seen these books, and I've seen the girls work in these books, and it's not the most exciting way to teach math, and it's not advanced necessarily, but if you have a kid that just needs to graduate from high school, or I've also known families who have younger children and they just think that this format works really well for their family. And so you will get the grade level math that you need this way. So if you just really have a kid that loves workbooks, this is a great option. And I want to say, I think a set of 12 books for a high school geometry credit is something like $40.
Yes,
Does that sound right, BeckiJo?
Yes, it does. It's a very reasonably priced, which is one advantage. I
Right.
used not the math, but I used the high school American history with my son the first year that we started. And I just used it as a spine. It's not the most exciting. The information was fine. It certainly gave him work that I could put in his portfolio. And then I supplemented with other things because I love history. Um, and some families just really like to have that workbook format and be able to say, you know, you need to have this completed by this date.
Right.
And
Very measurable.
mhm.
Yep. Okay. And it's taught from a Christian perspective.
Yeah.
So, you know, you don't have to worry if that's a concern for you. Okay. And then master books. BeckiJo, you said this would be like Life of Fred, but a full curriculum.
Really different than that, though. The more I read, it's a Charlotte Mason flavor
Okay.
math. They have a daily schedule for you, so that saves you lesson prep time. They're short and engaging lessons, only 15 to 30 minutes for the lower levels, for the elementary ed. And they blend instructional stories, copywork, oral narration, and hands-on experience. They have 7 levels from kindergarten to 6th grade that they call Math for a Living Education. Then they move on to Principles of Mathematics. That is again set up similarly, except for now they've moved up to 30 to 45 minutes. So it's much more age appropriate, and they have you do it 4 to 5 times a week. Now it includes worksheets, quizzes, and tests. And you can even use the middle school ones in high school. And they're the Principles of Mathematics. And then they go on to algebra and geometry, and those they use Jacob's math for those, which is a particular system, 50 to 70 minutes per lesson, five times a week, worksheets, quizzes, tests, and it says that it's a top choice for high school success and college prep. And it's been around for nearly 40 years.
Okay. Okay, so there's 2 other things that I didn't make slides for, but that might be appropriate supplements. Khan Academy is free online. They have gotten more and more like keyed towards Common Core because they're really trying to help public school students. But sometimes I will get on Khan Academy and just look up a certain topic and have the kid watch the video about that particular thing. So that can be a help because it's very comprehensive and they cover like every math topic imaginable and it's easy to search. And so if you're looking for just some extra, I know people who have used it because it's free as their sole math curriculum. I personally didn't choose to do that, but you could look into that if you just need some extra, because sometimes like if the kid's just not getting the concept from the textbook or curriculum that you're using, you just need like a different take on it. And so that's where, you know, YouTube or Khan Academy, different things like that could maybe be helpful in just like unlocking the concept in the child's mind by explaining it a different way or having it explained by a different person or just having a little bit different approach. And sometimes like your kid has just watched the same video 50 times and you're hoping that they understand it, but they're just not understanding it because they just have developed a mental block at that point and you need a different video. The other thing is Life of Fred. I'm less familiar with that, but they are short books that explain different concepts. They're a little bit expensive. I want to say they're about $30 a piece new, but they use humor to explain math concepts in a way that is like engaging in a different way than a math curriculum. So you could look into those. Okay, so there's a couple closing thoughts that we want to say. And BeckiJo, I realized last week when we talked about like how to homeschool and scheduling and stuff, one of the things that we talked about, but I neglected to say, and I apologize, is that we would both recommend that you combine every subject that you possibly can with your multi-age children, because there's no reason to teach science to a third grader and a different science to a fifth grader. Like, just do one science and teach it to both of them, and then they can have family camaraderie and your life is simplified. However, math is the thing that usually you have to divert age groups, right? Like, because you have different age kids and they're all in different levels with math. So this would be the thing that you probably cannot combine. However, if I had two kids that were a year apart from each other, I would seriously consider having the older one redo a math year so that I could teach both of them at the same time.
Absolutely.
Because the child would like overlearn and master whatever concepts were the year before that they had just had. And you would have the advantage of the kids both getting your attention, as you, just like you would in a classroom setting, as you answer one kid's question, the other kid is learning. So I would seriously consider doing that if you had kids that were close in age. Also, math facts is key. So addition, subtraction, multiplication, and to a lesser degree, division. Make sure your kids learn the facts, even if you have to put aside the curriculum that you're using. So this third and fourth grade, if they get to the end of third grade, or especially fourth grade, and they don't really know their math facts, or your child is struggling in fourth grade math because they don't know their multiplication tables, put the curriculum aside for 2 weeks and just drill math facts until they know it. Because you are going to Facina Lente, you're going to make haste slowly. I have been through this with a kid who didn't learn his math facts well enough. And we were like 5th, 6th grade math, and the kid is struggling. And I'm like, but you understand the concept, but the kids cannot see the patterns of the numbers if they don't know backwards and forwards. 7 times 3 is 21. So if you see a 21, you need to think 7 and 3 as factors. So these are critical. So if you have a kid that's struggling in math, especially if they're like junior high or earlier, I would look seriously at do they know their math facts really well? And could that be like the key to what they're struggling with, and not really maybe even the concepts that they're encountering. I know that this was the key to my lack of success in math. I didn't know my math facts. So I struggled like from third grade on in math. And I don't think it was because I was dumb. I think it was because I didn't know my math facts. Okay. So if your child is frustrated, or if math takes more than an hour, don't do all the practice problems. So
and we're talking about third or fourth grade, not kindergarten through second.
What'd you say, BeckiJo? I'm sorry.
We're talking about older children. Kindergarten through at least second grade, you shouldn't be spending that long on math.
Yeah, no, right. Thank you for that clarification. Right. I mean, math should be like 20 to 30 minutes if you have a younger elementary school student. But if you have an older kid, I would say, I think we're saying like 45 minutes on math should be, about right. So if you're hitting an hour and your kid is on like, they just haven't finished the number of problems that lesson is presenting them with, seriously consider just doing either the evens or the odds, or looking at the problems and saying, okay, I want you to do this one, this one, this one, and circle them. Because just like we talked about last week, some curriculums just give you too much stuff to actually do all of it. And you need to just choose, because maybe you have a genius math kid who needs to practice problems, or maybe you just need the curriculum is trying to give you extra practice problems in case you need them, but they don't really expect you to do all of them. So your kid could get easily, and I have made this mistake, easily frustrated in math if they are just asked to do too many problems for their age level and they don't really need all of that practice. And then the other thing is, please be consistent and do math every day, even if you don't do anything else. So if we do math in my house, math and Latin are my core subjects. So if we've done math and Latin, like we've done a school day, you've heard me say this before, but it's very difficult for a child to do math 3 days a week, 1 week, and then maybe you don't get back to it until Wednesday of the next week, or maybe you're only doing math every other day. So if you have a kid that's struggling in math and you're not doing math every single day, please consider that that might be the issue, because they're just not able to think deeply enough in spurts and starts. They just need consistency. And I will repeat it again, I am not a math person. Math is not my main subject, but I have found joy in math that I didn't expect to find, just because I have enjoyed learning math along with my kids, and seeing the patterns and numbers and all the wonderful things that math does. So even if you're intimidated by math like I am, if you do it every day and you find a curriculum that works for you and your kid, be consistent with it. And I think you'll see that you can overcome obstacles that you thought were daunting. Also, a lot of these curriculums are available used. Check the curriculum closet at the YHSA, which we haven't talked about yet, but we will. Ask around, see if somebody has one you can borrow just for like a month, and try that curriculum and see if your kid likes it. Don't switch curriculums every couple of months though. Like, experiment a little bit in the beginning, but like, you're just going to have to at some point decide to stick with the math curriculum. And maybe the problem is you or your child and not the curriculum. Because if you switch too much, the kid's going to get confused and you're not going to really accomplish anything. So you have to hit this balance between finding what works for your family and also, just deciding that you're going to stick with something so that you can kind of get the best of both worlds.
Especially because some math curriculums teach concepts at different levels. And in a different order. And if you are constantly switching math curriculums, again, there's a lack of consistency, or they might teach it in a different way that just then confuses the child. I found that as my daughter got older, hit late middle school to early high school, she liked doing all of her math in one day. Math was not her favorite subject. So she would do her math, but because the concepts built on each other, it made sense to her to do it all in one day. So she'd do her 5 lessons in one day, and then the other days were spent doing her other subjects. Once they're independent, that's not a problem, as long as they can keep hold of those concepts, which usually when they're older, they can. Also, something that we haven't mentioned that I found helpful when I first pulled my kids, but even as time went on, just for reinforcement, was IXL. It is an online program that is great for reinforcement. I wouldn't use it as just for the curriculum, and it does cost, but I didn't use it every year, but some years when I needed some reinforcement for math concepts or for something else for my daughter or my son, I would just buy an IXL subscription, sometimes the whole year, sometimes just a few months while we reinforce the particular concept. And I would say, I need you to go on IXL and just complete, 3 lessons, and I would have the lessons written out. And so that was also helpful at times.
Yeah, the other thing that has worked for some families, especially if mom is busy with a lot of kids, or just has circumstances where it's good to outsource math. I know a lot of families who the dad teaches math in the evenings. Now, you need to have a situation where your husband can be consistent, because if he can only do it once a week, that might be a better for a tutoring situation. But if you are in a situation where your husband can come home and at some point in the evening spend a half an hour or an hour teaching math, the kid could do the practice work, like the homework for it, the next day with you, and then you're helping. But that could be a way to maybe take some burden off of mom who's home during the day, or especially like a higher level math, maybe high school math. I know I couldn't teach high school math. So my husband can't either. So I'm not in that situation. But like, if your husband, my brother's an engineer. So like, when his kids get older, if they need, he could teach high school math and it would be no problem for him if he had the, time in the evenings. So that's something to consider. You could consider that with any subject. I think we've suggested this before, but maybe dad could teach a subject that he's really gifted in, and it would just take something off of mom's plate and, help with the burden.
I can't think of anything to add, Kandra.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Probably not a lot of questions. Because we've done such a good job of explaining how to teach math as a homeschooler.
Yes, exactly. And there's always good old Becca math.
Right.
and theirs is somewhat labor intensive for the parent, but it is a very solid curriculum that goes through lots of problems, lots of unnecessary busy work, but it will teach the concepts.
I know somebody very smart who has a smart child who's very happy using it, Becca. So, yep. I think that's a good suggestion. There are a lot more math programs in this. We just tried to highlight the main homeschool ones that, we know of people using, and we've been, homeschooling for about 9 years. I think both of us are on the same number of years, right? It's not as many as some people, but it's enough to have been around.
And the ones that we hear people talking about that they really liked.
Yeah. Like people have said, oh, this is great, or I'm using this and I'm very happy.
Yes.
All right. Well, it was nice being with you, BeckiJo, as always.
Yes.
And we'll see you next week.
I'll see you on Thursday.
Okay.
All right. Bye.